Hey guys, Joe here, and here I am to talk to you about a new topic, and that topic at hand is to stop the nerfs. Now, pretty much what I'm trying to talk about is that I really hope that for Smash Brothers, for games like fighting games and stuff, that the game companies, and especially Smash Bros, let's be talking about Smash Bros, the Smash Bros will just stop the nerfs on all the high tiers, stop the nerfs coming, and instead, of course, buff the low tiers. Now, this is something that a lot of people want to happen. Well, the thing is, people don't really like when high tiers are nerfed. As we saw with the Diddy Kong nerf, some people were happy for a little bit, but then overall, nobody really cared a few months later, and then Diddy Kong's still pretty good, so people are a bit pissed, but nobody really cared way too much. But at the same time, people like Ike that were buffed, and people like Robin that were buffed, people still really care about those buffs. Wii Fit, people really like those buffs, they picked up the characters, they became their main, and overall, low tier characters that get buffed, they're just a lot better, and people just really like when low tiers are buffed. So, what I recommend for soccer and for everybody is to completely stop nerfing the high tiers. Now, let me get into this a little bit more after I make that bold statement. So, pretty much what I'm talking about is that if you made Sheik, for example, have a lot more ending lag on all her moves, have a lot less combos and stuff, would that really do way too much? I mean, if Sheik was nerfed, she'd be bad, you know, mid-tier or something, but at the same time, somebody would take her place. Rosalina would be good, Luigi would be good, Pikachu could be the best character. Any of those people could easily take her place, and then they would be OP. And the thing is, this would go on forever. It would just keep going down the tier list, be like Rosalina, Pikachu, Ness. These aren't the highest tiers, but I can't remember exactly. But it would pretty much keep going down and down and down and down. And then you'd think it would be balanced, but a lot of the time they would overcorrect. Some characters would become too bad, some would become still a little bit too good, and the tier list would still never work. The problem about tier lists and how people rank characters in games is that it can never be balanced, because somebody has to be the best and somebody has to be the worst. But by nerfing characters, you don't really do way too much. You just make characters less fun to play, pretty much. Nobody wants to play a character that got nerfed. They're just not as fun to play. Overall, like, if you play Diddy now, he's just not as fun. Even though he might be a little bit more fun to play against, it's just not as fun to play a character, and fun is the majority of the game. But, now that I've talked about how it's really not fun to nerf the high tiers, think about how good it is to actually buff the low tiers. Let's think of some characters that got some buffs. Even though they aren't the best, they still moved up quite a bit in the tier list, and now they're a little bit closer to mid-tier. Mainly Ike, somewhat Charizard, Robin's new buffs are very good, Wii Fit especially. These characters started as maybe not really the worst characters in the game, but they really didn't have way too good as far as the tier list rankings, and they were a little bit lower on the tier list. Maybe not Robin quite as much, but the other ones were definitely very low on the tier list. But over a little bit, Nintendo decided to just buff these characters, and now as you can see, people put them near the mid. Now, that's actually very cool. It's nice to have everybody near the mid, and pretty much now the mid tier is growing. The thing about fighting games and every game ever, pretty much, people really like a big mid tier, or they want a big selection of high tiers. Now, if you buff everybody to be a high tier or a mid tier, then pretty much everybody's close to the same power level, and they're all close to the same amount of fun. Pretty much what Nintendo could do by just keep buffing and buffing and buffing is that they could make the best characters seem not quite as good in comparison to the new characters that got buffed. For example, if you gave, let's think, Marth a double forward air again, or if you just gave him a little bit less lag, pretty much Sheik wouldn't be as good in comparison. At least the matchup wouldn't be as good, because Marth has new tools that can kind of counter Sheik, so it's kind of like a mini nerf. If you buff everybody, it's as if you nerfed the high tiers. So if everybody becomes as good as the high tiers, then everybody is pretty similar, and you can pretty much play any character in the game. Now, the problem is that this is really hard in a big game. It's hard to know how to buff people. Think about this. If you just had to pick one character, what would you really do to them? Would you add like 3% to an attack? Would you make them more knockback? Would you make the like, not reduction, but increase go from like 102 to 107? How would you buff them? It's really hard, and it takes a lot of testing. And the thing is, Nintendo isn't like League of Legends. They aren't adding these patches over and over and over and over. They're doing them over some time, even though it's not as slow as TF2 or something. They're still doing it over some time. So, pretty much, it'll take a while for the game to become a lot more balanced. But at the same time, maybe Nintendo wants it to take a while, because then you'll be hooked on the game for a little bit more. But yeah, that's pretty much all that. But the thing is, if you do buff the low tiers, however you want to, it's very hard to know how to buff them. If you buff them too much, they're OP, they're the new best character in the game. if you buff them too little, nothing changed. Pretty much like Zelda. Look at Zelda. She was buffed terribly every single patch. Nobody cares about her 1% buffs. Nobody cares about her slight down B buff. None of it matters at all. Nintendo pretty much done goofed with the Zelda buffs. But at the same time, some of the characters like Ike got a buff, combos from throws, aerials that finally hit, and just stuff like that. Same with Wii Fit. It pretty much just made the characters good, but at the same time, something I want to mention, at the same time, if Sakurai buffs some characters, but not all the characters, let's just think about this. If he buffs only a few of the characters, let's say there's like 10 low tiers and he buffs like 7 of them, well, those guys are now mid tier, so now the mid tier is like 40 people or whatever. But then the low tier only has, let's say, 3 left. So those characters are really bad now. There's only 3 of them, and nobody's going to pick them because they're the worst in the game. Until he buffs those guys up, then they're mid tier also, and then the bottom of the mid tier will once again split off and become low tier. But it'll be a little bit more balanced. Pretty much what you have to do is keep buffing the low tier characters slowly but surely. Little buffs. Maybe some medium-sized buffs like throw combos and stuff. And then eventually, it won't be exactly balanced, but it will be a little bit more balanced where it's kind of, instead of like 1 to 50, let's say, like that's how the power scale goes, it could be like 1 to 20, a 1 to 10, 1 to 5, how strong they are compared to each other, which is pretty good. It would pretty much just make it a little bit more balanced just by buffing characters. And other than just balance in general, now that I've talked about the competitive thing, let's talk about the casual way of play, which is, of course, think about how much fun people have when their character gets buffed, and how, if you're a casual, how much you hate when your character gets nerfed. Nobody likes their character to get nerfed. Competitive people can kind of go through it, but if you're like a casual Diddy Kong player, imagine if you got nerfed that badly, you would not like Diddy Kong anymore. You throw him in the trash, maybe you don't, but a lot of people just don't like their characters when they get nerfed really badly, so they just throw them away. So nerfs can kind of just ruin it a little bit for casual players, especially if their favorite character gets nerfed. But if their favorite character gets buffed, I mean, everybody's happy. Their character is a little bit better, they can have more strength, they can have more combos, they can have pretty much a lot more stuff, better special moves. You can just make their character better, more fun, and pretty much just appeal to casuals. I know Sakurai really does like to appeal to the casual fan base, because the casual fan base is a pretty huge percentage, a lot bigger than the competitive fan base. So I think nerfing may be a little bit better for competitive, but it does have a lot of downsides. But nerfing in casual, there's really no upside. Nobody in casual really wants your character to be nerfed. I'd rather, if I was casual, I'd rather have like Game & Watch or somebody be buffed than have like she be nerfed. I don't really care if I'm a casual, I just want my character to become better. Nobody cares if the other characters are OP in casual play. They just want their character to become better, and pretty much that's just all I really have to talk about for casual play, is that as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know from my friends, and some from my more casual friends, having buffs is a lot more fun to the game. I know fun is a little bit subjective, but it's a lot more fun to a lot of players, and having nerfs is just kind of not very good. Also, something about this, a lot of the higher level players also do kind of agree, because a problem is, if you give characters big nerfs, like huge frame data nerfs, then the people that have spent months on them, months on their character, such as Zero or pretty much Mr. R, any of the good people, Abadango, if you nerf any of their characters, like really bad, all that work down the drain, especially if they become really bad. But if you just buff lower tiers, their work is still there. It's the exact same character. It may be harder for the matchup, it may be harder to win with them, but all your work that you put in is still there. Your character is exactly the same, just as good as they always used to be. And pretty much, it lets you just stay with your good high-tier character for longer, even if your high-tier character isn't as good in comparison to the new buffed-up characters. Still okay, it's still not way too bad, so this is pretty much what I'm thinking. Buffing is better than nerfing in my opinion, but if you guys really do like nerfs, if you think some characters are too overpowered, some characters have too much of something, then make sure to tell me in the comment section below. This is something that I really want to know you guys' opinions, because I'm pretty sure they'll be very strong one way or another. Or if you're, tell me if you're casual, tell me if you're competitive, and we can all see what type of stuff happens. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was a weird topic, I know, kind of about buffing, nerfing, what I think, but I hope that you did enjoy, and make sure to tell me in the comment section below what type of discussion you want for next week. Please tell me that. I had a little bit of a hard time trying to think of this one, so if you have any idea, that would be half decent. Make sure to tell me. Thank you guys for watching though. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.